r/NoSleep. In this town, don't answer whispers after midnight. I didn't choose this life, it chose me. Or maybe it shoved me off a cliff and laughed as I fell. When you're 17 and deemed unfit to belong by your own family, you don't exactly have a contingency plan. My stepdad made it clear I wasn't welcome anymore, especially after catching me holding hands with my then boyfriend behind the garage. His words still sting, not under my roof. Fast forward to now, I'm here, broke, homeless, and aimlessly drifting through the skeletal streets of a town that's barely on the map. I thought small towns were supposed to be safe. Turns out, safety isn't guaranteed when you're sleeping behind dumpsters and stealing scraps just to survive. When I first arrived here, I wasn't planning on staying long. My only goal was to find a job, save up, and get as far away as possible. But that was before I found myself in the shadow of a crumbling train station on the outskirts of town. It wasn't much, but it was better than nothing. The station reeked of mildew and neglect, but it was dry and quiet, qualities you come to appreciate quickly when you've spent nights shivering under park benches. The first night, I met him, Danny. He was probably in his early 40s, with a scruffy beard and tired eyes that seemed to carry more stories than I'd ever hear. Danny wasn't unkind, but he wasn't warm either. He handed me an old blanket and said one thing: "Don't listen to the whispers." I laughed nervously, hoping he was joking. He wasn't. By the second night, I understood. The whispers began just after the clock struck midnight. At first, they were faint, like the rustling of leaves in the wind. But they grew louder, distinct. They weren't just sounds, they were voices. Some male, some female, and something else entirely. They didn't shout or scream, they pleaded. "Help me. Please, it's so cold. Over here, just a little closer." They came from everywhere yet nowhere. The first time I heard them, I scrambled to my feet, spinning in every direction, trying to locate the source. But Danny grabbed my arm, his grip like iron. "Don't." His voice was firm, almost commanding. "You hear them, sure, but they're not there. They're not real." "What the hell are they?" I stammered. "Don't matter," he said, his tone flat. "What matters is you stay put. They'll leave when dawn comes." I wish I could say I followed his advice. Curiosity, though, it's a killer. On the fourth night, the whispers sounded different. Among the cacophony, one voice broke through that froze me to the bone. "Matthew." My blood turned to ice. I hadn't told anyone my name in weeks. No one in this town should have known it. Yet, there it was, carried on a phantom breeze. A woman's voice, soft and familiar. It sounded like my mom. "Matthew, please, I'm sorry. Come to me." I bolted upright. Danny was already awake, his eyes glaring at me like he knew exactly what I was thinking. "Don't even think about it," he warned. "It's my mom," I whispered, shaking my head. "I need to see." "It's not your mom," he cut in sharply. "It's them. They know what scares you. What draws you. They'll use it." I hesitated but stayed put, clutching the blanket like a lifeline. The whispers grew louder, more insistent. It was torture. On the seventh night, I gave in. Danny wasn't there, he'd gone to scavenge food, and the whispers knew. They called me by name again, pleading, crying, screaming in anguish. The voice led me to the train tracks just beyond the station. The moonlight illuminated the rusted rails, but beyond that, everything was swallowed by an impenetrable darkness. I took cautious steps forward, my breath visible in the sudden cold. And then, I saw her. A figure stood motionless in the distance, her form obscured but undeniably human. She raised a hand, beckoning me closer. "Mom?" I croaked, my voice breaking. The figure didn't answer but stepped closer. As she came into view, I felt my stomach churn. It looked like her, same face, same hair, same sad eyes, but something was horribly wrong. Her neck twisted at an unnatural angle, and her mouth moved, but the words that spilled out were distorted, guttural. They weren't hers. Then, she smiled. It wasn't a mother's smile. It was wide, too wide, splitting her face unnaturally. Her teeth were jagged and dark, like shards of obsidian, and her eyes. They were empty pits of shadow. I ran. Behind me, I could hear the thing shrieking, its footsteps thunderous against the dirt and gravel. The whispers morphed into laughter, high-pitched and mocking, coming from all directions. By the time I reached the station, Danny was waiting, holding a length of rebar like a baseball bat. "You stupid kid," he growled, dragging me inside. You just had to listen." The shrieking stopped abruptly, but the silence was worse. Danny shoved me into a corner and doused the doorway with something that smelled like gasoline. He lit a match, and the flames roared to life, forming a barrier. "They don't like fire," he muttered, more to himself than me. "But it won't hold them forever." "What are they?" I demanded, my voice shaking. Danny sighed, his face pale and drawn. "They were human once. Homeless, like us. The town didn't want them, so they disappeared them. Buried them alive in the foundations of the new developments. But they didn't stay buried." By dawn, the whispers were gone. Danny sat across from me, his face hard, his eyes hollow. "You've seen them now," he said grimly. "They won't stop. Not until they drag you down with them." "What do I do?" I asked, my voice barely audible. "Leave," he said simply. "Go as far as you can, but don't think that'll save you. They're spreading, kid. Town to town, city to city. You can't outrun what's already underground." Danny's words haunted me as I left the town, the weight of what I'd seen and heard pressing down on my chest like a slab of concrete. You can't outrun what's already underground. What the hell did that even mean? I didn't want to believe him, but part of me knew he wasn't just some crazy old man spouting nonsense. He knew something that was very, very real. The whispers didn't start again immediately. I made it a full 2 nights without incident. I managed to find a spot behind a gas station to sleep, and the owner even gave me some leftover sandwiches when I helped him take out the trash. For a fleeting moment, I thought maybe Danny had been wrong. Maybe leaving the town had saved me. Then the 3rd night came. I was huddled in my sleeping bag behind the gas station when the air grew heavy. The warmth of the summer evening gave way to an unnatural chill. My breath clouded in front of me, and that all too familiar static feeling prickled my skin. My stomach dropped. And then came the first whisper. "Matthew." My name floated on the night air, soft and distorted, like a broken record. It wasn't just one voice this time. There were many, overlapping and weaving together, creating an eerie, discordant symphony. "Matthew. Come back." I clamped my hands over my ears and shut my eyes, but it didn't help. The voices were inside my head, crawling into the spaces where fear had already taken root. I rocked back and forth, biting my lip so hard it bled, trying to convince myself it wasn't real. But I knew it was. The whispers grew louder, more insistent. They weren't just calling my name anymore. They were laughing. Mocking. "Did you think you could run? You can't hide from us." I couldn't take it. My chest felt like it was going to explode, and my legs moved on their own. I bolted out from behind the gas station and into the empty streets, my breath coming in ragged gasps. The town was small and desolate, its few streetlights flickering ominously. Shadows danced along the cracked pavement, and every corner felt like it was hiding something just out of sight. The whispers followed me. No matter how fast I ran or how far I went, they stayed with me. Louder. Closer. Until... "Matthew." The scream cut through the air like a blade. I froze, my legs trembling as I turned around. They were there. 3 figures emerged from the darkness, their forms grotesque and unnatural. Their limbs were too long, their spines twisted at impossible angles. Their faces, if you could even call them that, were pale and featureless, save for wide, grinning mouths filled with jagged, blackened teeth. Their eyes glowed faintly, empty and soulless. One of them tilted its head, the motion jerky and insect-like. "You belong to us now." I stumbled backward, my foot catching on the edge of the curb. I hit the ground hard, the impact jarring me, but I didn't dare take my eyes off them. My heart hammered in my chest as they crept closer, their clawed hands twitching eagerly. The whispers turned into a deafening roar in my ears, drowning out all other sound. Then, just as one of them reached out for me, a blinding light flooded the street. The creature shrieked and recoiled, retreating into the shadows like cockroaches scattering from a flashlight. I blinked against the brightness, my eyes struggling to adjust. When I could finally see, I realized the light was coming from the headlights of a van screeching to a halt in front of me. The back doors flew open, and 2 people dressed in tactical gear jumped out. "Get in!" one of them shouted, motioning frantically. I didn't hesitate. I scrambled to my feet and dove into the van, barely making it before the doors slammed shut. The vehicle sped off, tires screeching against the asphalt. I sat there, trembling and gasping for air, as the 2 strangers took seats across from me. "You're lucky we found you in time," the woman said, her voice calm but stern. She had short, dark hair and a scar running down the side of her face. They don't usually let their prey go. "To what?" I stammered, unable to form a coherent sentence. "They're called the Burrowed," the man answered. He was older, with salt and pepper hair and a weary expression. "They're not human anymore. Haven't been for a long time." "Why are they after me?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The woman exchanged a glance with the man before answering. "Because you've seen them. Once you see them, they mark you. They don't stop until they drag you down with them." "Down where?" I asked, my stomach twisting into knots. "To the tunnels," she replied grimly. "To the underground." The van took me to an old, abandoned factory on the outskirts of yet another dying town. Inside, it was anything but abandoned. The space had been converted into some kind of headquarters, filled with people monitoring screens, poring over maps, and preparing weapons I didn't recognize. "This is the Watch," the woman explained as she led me through the facility. "We're the only ones fighting back against the Burrowed." "How do you fight something like that?" I asked, still trying to process everything. "You don't," she said, her tone somber. "Not completely. You can only contain them. Keep them from spreading." "And how's that working out?" I asked bitterly. "Not well," the man admitted. "They're getting stronger. Bolder. We've seen entire towns go silent overnight, swallowed up by the underground." My blood ran cold. "Is there any way to stop them?" The woman paused, looking at me with an intensity that made my skin crawl. "There might be. But it's dangerous. The plan was simple in theory: lure the Burrowed into an old mine shaft rigged with explosives and seal them inside. But to do that, someone had to act as bait. Guess who drew the short straw?" The mine was pitch black and reeked of damp earth and decay. I stood there, clutching a flashlight and a walkie-talkie, every muscle in my body screaming at me to run. The whispers started almost immediately, echoing off the walls. "Matthew! Come closer. It's safe down here." I gritted my teeth and kept moving deeper into the mine, the sound of my footsteps swallowed by the oppressive silence. My flashlight flickered, and I felt the air grow colder. They were here. The first figure emerged from the shadows, its glowing eyes locking onto me. Then another. And another. Soon, the tunnel was filled with them, their twisted forms crawling toward me like spiders. "Now!" I screamed into the walkie-talkie, dropping the flashlight and sprinting back toward the entrance. The explosion shook the ground, a deafening roar that sent rocks and debris flying everywhere. I barely made it out before the entire shaft collapsed, sealing the Burrowed inside. For now. That was 6 months ago. The Watch relocated me to a new town, gave me a new identity, and warned me to stay out of the shadows. But I know it's not over. The whispers still find me sometimes, faint and fleeting, like a bad memory that refuses to fade. And every so often, I feel that static in the air, that tension that signals they're near. You can't outrun what's already underground. But you can't hide from it either.